And welcome, everyone, to this afternoon's seminar on grading in Canvas. I'm Dave Giberson, an old retired instructional design coordinator from Online Learning Pathways at the SDCCD. They've asked me to come back and do a little consulting here to help out with this interesting situation we find ourselves in. Today we're going to talk about how to use the Canvas gradebook and how to actually grade different assessments in Canvas. We'll look at both of those issues. I'll be sharing my screen much of the day, and you should be able to see what I'm talking about. Please let me know immediately if you're having trouble seeing or hearing something. I'll especially try to keep an eye on the chat tool early on in case somebody's having trouble hearing or seeing. I gather from the interactions I've had so far this afternoon that you're all hearing me pretty well and seeing me. I can see that I am transmitting sound at a reasonable level, but let me know if you have any trouble. And when I share my screen, let me do that now. Not sure what's behind there. Don't need that right this minute. Okay, you should be seeing my desktop right now, just a blue Windows desktop.
We do.
I'll be putting things on there, obviously. Let me find Canvas here. Make sure I've got that handy. There it is. All right. There's a Canvas course. If you're having any trouble seeing this, it's too small, some of the print is hard to see, you'll find at the top of your screen a little button marked View Options. And if you click that, you'll have some options which will allow you to magnify what you're seeing a little bit. If you magnify this to where it's more than full screen, you get a little hand icon that you can use to move the screen around so you can see what I'm talking about. But you may need to do that. And if you're on a mobile device, a smartphone or a tablet, when I share my screen, you should be able to pinch zoom and zoom in, and then use your finger to move the screen around. Pinch zoom, you just put your thumb and your forefinger on the screen and spread them apart in contact with the screen, and that should make things bigger. Want everybody to be able to see. I'm also going to try to keep away from this upper right-hand corner of the screen here, because I know some of you, particularly on mobile devices, may have a video window there or something. If you're seeing a little video window with me in it and maybe 3 or 4 of your colleagues, you can move that around and get it out of the way if you need to, or you can minimize it by clicking the little dash in the upper left-hand corner of that window. But you can also, under View Options, you can also select side-by-side mode, and that video window will appear off to the side, and the complete screen share will appear beside it. But that does decrease the size of the screen share a little bit. So just play around with those options till you find something that makes it easy for you to see what I'm talking about, because that's going to be critical today, obviously. Excuse me. So today we're going to talk about grading in Canvas. And the first thing I want to look at is the Canvas gradebook, because you'll need to be able to navigate that, to modify it at need, to rearrange it, and know generally how to use it. The Canvas gradebook, of course, is available under the Grades link in your course menu. When you click on Grades, you see the gradebook. When a student clicks on the Grades link, they see their own grades listed in a different format. They would never see your gradebook. They can't see each other's grades, ever. So let's look at that gradebook. It's nothing too unusual to look at. It's a standard ledger type gradebook, very similar to looks a lot like a spreadsheet. So it doesn't have spreadsheet-like capabilities. It's not Excel, unfortunately. But it looks like a basic paper gradebook. Each assessment, each graded item in the course, is represented by a column, and each student is represented by a row, with the student names in the first column on the far left. Pretty standard stuff. Let me see. Whoop, what did I do with my outline here? I know I've got that up somewhere. There it is. All righty. Let me pull that onto another screen while I'm thinking about it. There we go. Now I can see it over here while you all are looking at Canvas. All right, the first thing we might ask is, well, how do grades get into the gradebook? Well, generally they're automatically placed in there, either when a test is graded automatically by Canvas, or when you use a grading tool called the Speedgrader to grade a homework assignment or a gradable discussion. And then you assign a grade to the student. From there, the grades will automatically appear in the appropriate cell in the gradebook. You can, in all cases, you can manually override a grade in Canvas just by clicking on the cell where the grade would go and typing in a number and pressing enter, just like you'd enter something into a spreadsheet. But that's not generally what you would do. Generally, the grades appear here without you having to do anything like that. The columns in the gradebook are ordered by default according to the assignments tool in your course menu. If we go to assignments, by default, things appear in the gradebook in the order that they appear in the assignments tool, because the assignments tool lists all of the assessments. Indeed, this tool should be named assessments, not assignments, but they don't listen to me. And they're not alone in that. But this is your default order for assessments, but you can change that in the gradebook quite easily for yourself. And probably the thing that people most like about this gradebook when they first see it, particularly someone who used Blackboard at some point in the past, you can rearrange the columns in your gradebook like this, just by clicking and dragging on the column heading. So you can put your gradebook columns in any order that you wish. This does not alter the order of the grades as they're displayed to students, however. That is determined by default by the order of the assignments or the assessments in the assignments tool, or students can choose other ways of ordering their grades as well. So the ordering here is for your convenience, not so much for the students. Where do the columns come from? Well, when yes, the student, good question in the chat tool here. Student names are automatically populated into the gradebook. Yes, they automatically appear there when the student is enrolled in the course and accepts the enrollment. Or in your case, students are automatically populated from Peoplesoft. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. That occurs automatically. And they automatically appear in the gradebook until they drop. And if they do that, then they disappear from the gradebook under normal circumstances. We have had some problems with that over the past month because of some business practice changes in Peoplesoft that we had no control over, which were causing many students who dropped a course not to be removed from the gradebook and not to be removed from the course at all. Indeed, we've done a programming fix for that to adjust to that business practice change in Peoplesoft, and that will be implemented tomorrow afternoon about 2 o'clock. So after tomorrow afternoon, students who have dropped a course will disappear from it.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. That was really something that Online Learning Pathways had no control over. They changed the way that they were coding drop students in Peoplesoft, and the programming that had been done to bring the students over into Canvas had no idea. You know, they couldn't react to that. It was set to work with their old business practice, and IT has had to reprogram that integration script, and that takes a little time, but it should be done by tomorrow afternoon. So that's the basic navigation of the gradebook. There are generally more columns than will fit on a single screen, and there's a scroll bar at the bottom that will allow you to move across and see all of your assessments. You'll also see a total column, which is by default displayed at the far right-hand end of the gradebook, though you can cause that total column to be moved over here to where it's just to the right of the student names, which can be more convenient especially when you're doing things like assigning final grades. Just to the left of the total column, you will see at least one column that represents what are called assignment groups, and we'll talk more about those later. But I have 3 assignment groups in this course: tests, discussion, gradable discussions, and homework assignments. And I get a separate subtotal or sub-average column for each of those parts of the course, so I can see how people are doing on different types of assessments. Gives me a little more information about their performance. Now let's look a little bit at take a look at some of these menus that are associated with the gradebook here. First one, the gradebook menu itself allows you to jump between the standard gradebook view, which is what you see here, and individual view, which allows you to see the grades for any individual student. You just select a student that you want to see. Probably I should pick one that has some grades. And then you'll see their grades individually. And you can always go back to the gradebook view. If you're trying to remember when you graded something, you can go to Gradebook History, and you'll get a series of events showing when you graded things. If you want to know, did I change a grade? What was the original grade? And so on, you can go back here and find that. The View menu here allows us to arrange our columns in different ways. This is in addition to your ability to just drag columns back and forth and put them wherever you want them, so this is not all that critical. The default order is the order in the Assignments tool. You can sort the columns by assignment name, ascending and descending, by due date, So you see the columns that are due first at the left-hand end. You can sort them by the number of possible points for each assessment. So you can put the more valuable assessments at one end or the other. You can also sort them by module. The assessment, this is assuming your assessments, as would be the case in a well-designed Canvas course, that your assessments are linked into your content module so the students can access them from there. If that's the case, you can arrange these columns automatically by module. So, but in most cases, you'll probably just drag things around, get them where you want them, and leave them there. Filters allow you to display only a selected subset of gradebook columns. If you're grading a certain type of assessment, you may not want to see all the others in the gradebook. You may want a simpler display. I've selected here options to filter gradebook columns by both assignment group and by module. And that's where these menus right here come from. You won't necessarily see these boxes in your gradebook. But if I, for instance, want to see only tests here, I can select that, and the number of gradebook columns immediately drops, and these are my tests. Or I can see my graded discussions. There's only one in this course. Or my homework assignments. Or I can see everything. Same with modules. If I want to see the assessments that are associated with my topic 1 module, I can just click there, and these 2 assessments are the only ones associated with that module. So you have lots of ways that you can filter which columns you're seeing at any given moment to make grading a little bit less of a treasure hunt. There is also an option to insert a so-called notes column into the gradebook. You click that option under View, you see this notes column here appear. This is a column the students would not see. This is a place for you to type reminders to yourself or notes about that student, and you can make this column wider at need. And you can just click into the column, type something, save it, and just go right down. Useful reminder to yourself. And again, the students don't see that. You can also choose to display columns for unpublished assessments, unpublished gradable items in the course, something you're working on but you haven't yet published for your students. That's up to you. Normally, assignments or assessments do not appear in the gradebook. They don't have a column in the gradebook until you publish them for the students. So if you're missing something in the gradebook, go and look and see if that assessment has been published. And if not, that's why it's not showing up yet. Under actions, you have basically 2 actions. You can export your gradebook to a comma-separated value file, a CSV file, that can be imported into Excel. So it's a great way to save your gradebook and back it up. You just click Export. Once the export completes, a File Save dialog box will pop up, and you pick where you want to save it. Let's see, let's make a folder for that. just put it somewhere where you, obviously put it somewhere where you can find it. And this tells you the date it was done and grades and the course code for the course, which will allow you to identify the course. And that goes to a file stored on your hard drive, and you can open that file in Excel. It's thinking about it. Sorry, Excel's taking its time starting up there. Not quite sure why that's happening. That'll come up in a minute. I'll worry about it in a minute. But that file then serves as a backup for your gradebook in case something awful should happen in Canvas, though I will tell you that Canvas, in our 3 years of experience with it, has never lost a grade. The chances of it losing a grade are very minuscule unless you accidentally delete one. We have had that happen. But it's almost impossible for Canvas to lose a grade. So that you don't have to worry much about that, but it never hurts to have a backup, particularly at the end of the term. You can store that in a folder on your hard drive in case there are future questions about your grades in this course. It may be more convenient to access them from your local computer than from Canvas, though probably not. You can also load that file into Excel, manipulate it there, and then upload it back to Canvas with an import, and you can do manipulations in Excel that you can't do in Canvas because of the Excel has, of course, far more capability than the Canvas Gradebook does. But the Canvas Gradebook actually has good capacity for grade computation. And we'll look at that as we go through today. Okie dokie. Let's see. Let's look at the individual grade columns. There are some menus associated with those columns as well. If you mouse over the column header for each column, you'll see a little menu option here, or a menu button, 3 vertical dots. If you click on that, you can sort the gradebook on this column if you want to, high to low, low to high. You sort missing or late to the top or bottom as well. You can go right to the Speedgrader if you have a column full of submissions, not grades, but submissions, and you're ready to just work your way down that column. You can go right to the Speedgrader for this column. That's a relatively recent option. The last time I did this session, I don't believe that option was not there, but that's a convenience in grading. You can just work your way right down the column and see if you can find, you can see submissions. This is how you look at your students' test papers, for instance, quote unquote paper. You just work your way through. And then this little icon in the Speedgrader in the upper right, or upper left, excuse me, takes you back to the gradebook display. You can communicate with your students through the gradebook. Each of these columns has a Message Students Who link. If you click on that, a messaging tool comes up. This is basically your connected to your Canvas inbox. And you can choose to communicate with students who haven't submitted this assessment, or haven't been graded, or scored less than a certain amount, or more than a certain amount. So you can give feedback, encouragement, congratulations. Why haven't you submitted this? It's been, it's due tomorrow or something like that. So it's a great way to give your students a little prod when needed, or some nice feedback when it's appropriate. You can change the subject line here if you wish, and then you can just type a message. It's a basic text message, but you can get your point across. And only students who fit into this category will get the message. Very useful tool. Curve grade, I don't recommend messing with that grade curving tool. It may have undesirable impact. You can set the default grade for a column. Let's go to another column. I've already done that here. Let me click Set Default Grade here. This is a grade that will be applied to any assessments that are not submitted, that you don't already have a grade or a submission for. You can use this to enter a grade of 0, for instance, for assignments that should have been submitted but have not been. In this case, 3 students had not turned this in, so now they have 0s. Saves you a little time, especially if if you have a lot of students and a lot of assessments. Obviously, you don't want to do that while people are still turning things in, because they'll have a 0 sitting there instead of, before they have a chance to submit. But that can save you some time. And it's important that if a grade is not, if an assignment has not been turned in, and it should have been, that you do have a 0 in the cell in the grade book, because when Canvas computes grades, it does a running average, or a running total, a running percentage, I should say, or a running total, in that it doesn't count things against students that they haven't submitted, unless there's a 0 there. And we've had this happen all the time. A student can submit the first assessment, get a perfect grade on it, and then never submit anything else, and Canvas just goes along telling the student they have 100%, which can have obvious implications later in the term. So you have to be aware of that. You want 0s in place for assessments that should have been submitted that have not yet been so. Alrighty. You can hide the grades from the students if you need to. You can enter your grades either as points or percentages, normally points. And you can set the grade posting policy for this particular column. That is either automatically or manually. If you set it to manual, grades are hidden from the students until you go back and change this to automatic. So, but normally the students will see the grade as soon as you put it into the grade book, or as soon as you assign the grade through the Speedgrader, or the grade is automatically put into the grade book when Canvas grades an objective test. Normally the students will see the grade immediately, and that's usually what you want. Now let's take a look at the total column. This is obviously what will become your final grade. But again, it is computed as a running total or a running average, depending on how you have it set to display. So students will be able to look at the total column throughout the term and have an idea of how they're doing in the course. Especially if you take the default and leave the total column as a display by percentage. You can set this to display as points. But if the students don't know how many possible points should have been earned by this point in time, or could have been earned by this point in time, that total doesn't necessarily mean much to them. So that's why display as percentage is the default. And that gives them a pretty good idea of how they're doing in the course. You can, as I mentioned, move this to the front of the gradebook, where it will appear just to the right of the student names. And that's real handy when you're trying to assign grades at the end, but the usual position is at the end. So, how are your grades calculated? Might be the next question. What's Canvas doing to compute these grades? Well, by default, what Canvas will do to get that percentage is to take the possible points that you have assigned for all of the individual assessments, and you assign those when you create the assessments. We'll take the possible points and add those up and get a course total for possible points. Then it will take the number of points awarded to each student. And if a student submission has not been graded yet, it gives a student all of the possible points until you grade it. So that can be a little bit of a confusion for the student. But that aside, Canvas then just adds up all the awarded points for that student, divides the awarded points by the possible points, and multiplies by 100 to get the usual percentage. In that scenario, your individual assessments are weighted. That is, their individual contribution to the final grade is determined by the number of possible points you've set. So if you want one assessment to count twice what another one does, you give it double the number of points. If you say you have a series of daily quizzes that are relatively low stakes, they might all be worth 5 points, say, where a chapter exam might be worth 50 or more. A final exam might be worth 200 or whatever. That's one way to weight the contribution of each assessment to the final grade. It's the method for weighting these grade columns that is conceptually probably the simplest way to do it. It's easy to grasp that idea. It is not the easiest way in terms of the amount of work it causes you, especially in the case of tests. Well, so you have this idea that a test has to have 20 points in order to be weighted properly in your grading scheme, just as an example. Well, making a test grade come out to 20 points means that the individual question values inside the test have to add up to 20 points. Well, if it's a 20-question test and all the questions within the test are the same value, well, that's easy, but that's rarely the case. So people end up having to do things like, well, in order to make this come out to 20 points, I've got to give these questions a 1.5 each, and this question's 4.5. This type of question will be 4.5 points, and that one will be 3.5 points, and things like. You get into this game of making sure that the exam grade adds up, the possible points on the exam adds up to what it's supposed to fit into your grading scheme. And that takes for bleeding ever. And it ends up with, you know, like I say, fractional point values on questions, which just confuse students. So I don't much care for doing it that way. Besides which, I don't want to have to go through and think about each individual assessment. Why should that be 5 points? Should be 10 points possible, whatever. When I write my syllabus for my students, I like to say, well, maybe my homework assignments are going to be 50% of the grade. We've all put this in our syllabi. The homework assignments will be 50%. The quizzes will be maybe 40%, and maybe my class participation, which would be my graded discussions, might be 10%. I like to think in broad terms like that. And that's very easy to explain that to the students in the syllabus. But how do you get Canvas on board with that idea? Well, to do that takes a little more setup. It takes some setup, and it's conceptually a little bit more complex. But in point of fact, in terms of work involved, it's much less onerous. To set up weighting by categories of grade, like tests, homework assignments, graded discussions, which are the 3 types of assessments you have available in Canvas. You go to the assignments tool. And these grade categories I'm referring to are termed assignment groups by Canvas. They are the identical concept to the grade categories that we had in Blackboard, for those of you who go back to Blackboard and may have weighted your grades in Blackboard by grade category. You have the same option in Canvas, only we call the categories assignment groups. Each assignment group would contain a series of assessments. And again, I'll apologize in advance for the confusion between the word assignment and an assessment in Canvas. Canvas uses the word assignment very loosely. Sometimes when the word assignment is used in Canvas, it means a homework assignment. The student will satisfy by uploading a file, usually, to an assignment Dropbox, and you will grade it and they'll get a grade for it. Other times, Canvas uses the word assignment to refer to any gradable item in the course, which can be a quiz, test. All tests are quizzes to Canvas. A quiz, a homework assignment, or a gradable discussion. And as an umbrella term, Canvas uses the word assignment to apply to all 3 of those sometimes, and sometimes just to the homework assignment, which drives me to distraction. This tool right here should be named assessments, because that's what these are. These are assessments. These are things you use to measure your students' performance in the course. And my explanation of this business would be a lot simpler if they'd make that one simple change. I'm sure they have their own reasons for not doing that, but I don't know what they are. Maybe it'd make it sound too much like Blackboard. That's just a dark suspicion I have. Anyway, as long as you understand that Canvas is fast and loose with the word assignment, you'll be on your guard. So what I've done here in the assignments tool, originally, when I first created all of these assessments, these homework assignments, these quizzes, and this graded discussion, they were all in one assignment group. That when you get your blank shell in Canvas, it contains one assignment group. That assignment group is named assignments, plural. Sorry about that. And all your gradable items automatically show up under that. When you create a homework assignment or a quiz or a gradable discussion, they automatically appear in the assignments tool here, in this assignments list. And by default, they'll all be in one assignment group. And that is perfectly fine if you're not going to weight your grade computations by assignment group, by category. If you're just weighting by individual assessment, by assigning a particular number of possible points to each assessment that reflects that assessment's total value in the course, then you don't have to worry much, if any, or any, about assignment groups. You can just leave everything in the one assignment group named assignments and forget about the assignment groups. But to me, it's a lot easier to weight your grades by assignment group, which means you have to create your assignment groups. You do that by using this Add Group button here in the Assignments tool. You just click on that and you give the group a name. Type it in and click Save. And I've done that 3 times here. I've made a homework assignments grade or assignment group, a test assignment group, which is where all my quizzes are. Again, the Canvas uses the word quiz instead of test or exam. But a quiz in Canvas can be anything from a 2-question pop quiz to a 100-question final exam. They're all quizzes to Canvas. So I put all those in a assignment group called test. And the one gradable discussion I've got in this course, I've got in a discussion grade or assignment group. That does a couple of things for me. The first thing it does is it allows me to, and of course I could have more assignment groups if they were appropriate for this course. You might have 2 or 3 different kinds of tests in your course. For instance, you might have some daily or weekly quizzes that are relatively low stakes, and you might have maybe some chapter exams that are relatively higher stake, or perhaps periodic exams that cover 2 or 3 or more chapters that are obviously count more than the daily or weekly quizzes. Or you might have, say, a final exam, which would count more than everything else, or more than any of the other assessments. So you could have assignment groups for each of those. You could have an assignment group for weekly quizzes, one for chapter exams, and one for the final exam. The assignment group for the final exam would just have one assessment in it, the final exam, probably, but that's fine. So you can make your grade category, or your assignment groups, grade categories, as granular as you like. They can be very limited or larger, whatever. But every assessment within an assignment group, if we set up weighting through assignment groups, is going to be weighted the same. So each of the weekly quizzes, say, would be weighted the same. And each of the chapter exams would be weighted the same. The final exam would have its own weight, and so on. So you'd only put things within an assignment group that all had the same weight or importance to your final grade. And again, you can have as many assignment groups as you like. Once you get that structure set up, and you create the assignment groups using this button here, the assignments themselves, the assessments themselves, appear in this list automatically. To associate them with a particular assignment group, all you have to do is drag the assessment into the appropriate assignment group. I just moved that one out of the right one. I'll put it back in. But when you're setting up your assignment groups, To get the right assignments in each group, all you do is drag the assignments around and put them in the right assignment group. It takes no time at all. So it's very easy. Once you've decided how you want to weight your grade, I'm going to have these categories of assessments, and each of these categories is going to have a certain percentage weight of the overall grade. Once you've decided that, which you pretty much have to decide before you type your syllabus, it's very easy to set up your assignment groups so that items with identical weights appear in the same assignment group. And then weighting those assignment groups is so simple. You just, in the assignments tool, you just go to this little menu button in the upper right here, the assignment settings menu. And you can click on assignment groups weight. You tell Canvas you want to weight your final grade based on assignment groups rather than upon individual assessments. It then shows you an entry for each of your assignment groups and allows you to type in a percentage weight for that group. I think I'll have my tests be 40% and my graded discussion be 10% of the grade. And again, you might well have more assignment groups than that. That's fine. It's just as easy. The only thing you have to be able to do is make sure everything adds up to 100. and Canvas keeps track of that for you. This number here has to be 100. And Canvas will stop you if it's not. So half of my grade is going to be the homework assignments. Another 40% will be determined by the tests, and only 10% will be determined by the grade on the one graded discussion I've got. When I'm happy with that, I just click Save. The assignment group's weights now appear in the assignment tool. And you're done as far as grade weighting. The beauty of this is that these homework assignments, it doesn't matter what the total possible points is for each of these assignments. Because what Canvas is going to do when it's computing these grades is it's just going to look at each assessment, and it's going to look at the number of points you gave the student versus the possible points for that assessment, and it's going to compute a percentage. And it's that percentage that it's going to use in the grade computations going forward. So it doesn't really matter how many points each assessment is worth. I know that's a little hard to wrap your head around, but this assignment could have a value of 20 points and this one a value of 10 points, but they would both be weighted the same in this case because Canvas would compute a percentage grade for each one and then take that percentage grade and move forward with it, forgetting about the number of points. What I like to do, I give everything a total possible points of 100 because it's easy to add things up in my head. And it works. With tests, you can just let the tests have whatever number of possible points they come out to when all the question values within the test are added up. You can just look at your test questions and say, maybe my multiple choice questions be worth 2 points, my essay questions be worth 10 points, but maybe that essay question is worth more than the earlier essay question, so it'd be worth 15 points. You just assign question values within the test to so that the questions within the test are weighted properly in your estimation. And then just take whatever number of points that adds up to in the test. The tests don't all, within the tests within this test assignment group, don't all have to have the same number of possible points. It's immaterial to Canvas. Canvas will just compute a percentage grade for each and use that in the computations for the final grade. And it will do a weighted average computation using a formula that you don't have to worry about. It knows what to do. So this is really, while it's conceptually a little harder to grasp, is really the easiest way to weight your grades in Canvas. It also gives you another option, or creating assignment groups also gives you another option other than easy grade weighting. It also gives you the capability to drop the lowest grade within an assignment group. So if you have maybe 20 minor quizzes, you could, rather than having to deal with makeups on those and so on, you can tell students, okay, you know, you get, you can drop the lowest one. If you don't take one, that's the lowest grade. You set that up by going to the name of the assignment group, going out to the right here, and clicking on the menu, context menu option, the little vertical dots associated with that assignment group, and you select Edit. Edit. You can change your assignment group weight if you like here, but what you're more likely to do here is tell Canvas how many of this series to drop. If you want only the lowest grade dropped, you set the lowest score to 1. If you want to drop, if there's a bunch of them, you want to drop the 2 lowest ones, you can do that too. If you are being entirely objective or accurate in your grade computations, if you're dropping outlier grades, you might also drop the highest grade. I'll be fascinated to hear how your students react to that if you try that. I've never had the guts to do that. I know it instructionally or pedagogically it's supposed to be more valid, but I've never been that much of a hard guy. So, but you can drop the highest score or highest 2 scores or 3 scores or whatever, depending on what's appropriate. You can also tell Canvas if there's an assignment, or if there's an assessment, excuse me, I can't keep it straight either. There's an assessment that in a group that you really want everyone to get credit for, or lose credit if they don't take it. You can exclude a particular assessment in this assignment group from being dropped, and say, don't drop that one. I've never seen that capability before. I'm sure that somebody really wanted that at one time or another, and Canvas added it. So when any changes you make here, if you just save them, Canvas tells you there's a rule here, and that you're set to drop the lowest score, just to remind you in case you need it later. So that's assignment groups, and that's how you can weight your grades by assignment group and have Canvas worry about all the arithmetic. And those are your 2 options in Canvas. Anything more complex than dropping the lowest grade, you're going to have to go to Excel. And you can export the gradebook to Excel and do your computations there and import them back into the gradebook. That's neat. All right. Let's go back to the gradebook and see where we are here. You may have noted in my total column here that I had letter grades here as well. Canvas has assigned those automatically. How did I get Canvas to do that? How did I tell Canvas where the cutoffs were? Well, I did that course by course in my settings, on my settings page in my course menu. Click on settings and go to the course details tab, the first tab, the default tab, and scroll down. And there's an entry on this course details page for grading scheme. If I want to use letter grades and want to have them displayed in Canvas, I have to enable a course grading scheme. I can just do without that if I want, by unchecking that. But if I want if I want to have letter grades displayed, I have to enable a course grading scheme. And I have to select a grading scheme. I've already done that here, so I can take a look at the one. This is the standard grading scheme in our Canvas system, and it's a fairly standard 90, 80, 70, 60, 0 cutoff for ABCDF. And that's what you usually see at the district, but this is an academic freedom item. You can set your cutoffs where you deem them appropriate. There isn't another scheme in the system. We haven't made multiples for you. We've just made that one standard scheme. And you can use that one, or you can create your own by clicking Manage Grading Schemes. And here's your standard scheme, but you can add your own scheme. And you get all the possible grades, including pluses and minuses, and a way to set the cutoff values for each. The district does not use pluses and minuses, so we'd probably want to start off by taking those out. And you take a grade option out by clicking the X at the end of the line for that one. So there are the B pluses and minuses out there. ABCDF. Now you can set your own cutoffs and save this and use this as your grading scheme. Go back to settings here. So again, that was grading scheme, enable, and set the grading scheme, and set your cutoffs. So now in the total column, by doing that, in the total column, you will automatically see letter grades. And so will the students. We'll see letter grades associated with their current total percentage. With anything between 60 and 70, we'll show as a D, and so on. So fairly easy to set up, and that happens automatically in the total column. Or if you uncheck that option under settings, it won't, the letter grades will not appear. That kind of leads me to a discussion of manually created grade columns, because it is also possible, and what I would prefer to do, it is also possible to create a column in the gradebook that you could enter your letter grades into manually. Because I never liked having an LMS pick grades for me by, you know, if a student was 89.9, they got a B. I wanted to have some input on that, especially if the student had been, you know, especially hardworking student and had earned a break. Well, I'd probably assign that as an A. Canvas won't do that unless you tell it to. You know, it's heartless in that regard. So I don't like to have an LMS assign my letter grades automatically. That's just a personal preference. That's not a pedagogical recommendation, Lord knows. But there are also other reasons why you might want to have a manual grade column or a manually entered grade column. Let's say in a face-to-face class, we're using Canvas in the halcyon days back when we used to be able to meet with our students face-to-face. Let's say you might have an assessment that was carried out in class that was not fulfilled through Canvas. The student wrote a paper and turned it in on paper, and you graded it, or they took a test on paper and you graded it. But you wanted to get that grade into Canvas, because Canvas is about the only way you can legally post grades for your students, because the grades are protected by a login. Only the student who belongs to those grades can see them. It's a safe, secure way to post grades without violating FERPA. So very often instructors will use the gradebook in Canvas just for that, just for posting grades. And of course, they also have the option to use the gradebook to compute their grades as well, if their grading scheme is not overly complex. So there are times when you might want to just be able to put in a grade column that you could manually enter the grades into. That was especially important this semester when people were switching over from a face-to-face to a remote format, and were having to put their grades. The only way the students could get their grades at all was to get them in Canvas. And these instructors in many cases had a bunch of grades in their grade books already. This, creating a manual grade column in Canvas, gave them the opportunity to enter those grades into Canvas out of their paper grade book, or wherever they had them, in another program or whatever, and make them available to the students, and also make them available to Canvas, so Canvas could use them for final grade computation. So the question becomes, how do you create a manual grade column in Canvas, or manually create a grade column in Canvas? I should say, I should make that an adverb instead of an adjective there. You'll note right off the bat that there's no button that says create a column. We used to have one like that in Blackboard, and it was a fairly simple process. Not quite as simple here, but not that difficult either. To manually create a grade column into which you can enter grades in the Canvas gradebook, you have to go once again to the Assignments tool. And you have to create the assignment by clicking on the Add Assignment button in the Assignments tool. This is basically going to be a dummy assignment. They're an assignment that's the student is not going to submit within Canvas. It's just, we want to create that gradebook column so you can enter the grades into it. So we can call this, I'll just call this manual column to remind me where it came from later on. I could enter some description if I wanted to, but that's not necessary. I need to assign the number of points that this assessment contained, or what the possible points were. I'd have to assign it to a particular, in my case, since I'm weighting things by assignment group, I'd have to specify which assignment group. If I'm weighting my assessments in the gradebook individually by possible points per individual assessment, and I'm not dropping the lowest grade anywhere, I don't have to worry about this assignment group thing at all. I can have the grade display in the gradebook as points, percentage. It could just be a check off, yes, no, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, complete, incomplete. It could display as a letter grade. If I give the student 9 points out of 10, you could have the grade display as an A instead of as a 9. Or you could do it on a 4-point GPA scale. Or you could just say this is not graded. And you're just entering some text or something into the gradebook. Usual thing is to have grades display as points, though. If you don't want the assignment to affect the final grade at all, you can check that box. But in this case, we'll assume it is something you want to compute, figured into the final grade. In the case of a manual grade column, the submission type is either going to be no submission or on paper. Those two options are pretty much functionally equivalent. it tells Canvas not to expect a grade. It tells Canvas that there's nothing inside Canvas that's going to tell you what the grade of this assignment is. This is grade for this assignment is going to be manually entered into the grade book by the instructor. And that's what either one of those options implies. And you would normally, in this case, probably not set due dates or anything like that. That was handled analog, offline. So the key here is setting this to no submission or on paper in terms of submission type. And of course, you do have to set a number of points and maybe put it in the appropriate assignment group. And when you're done, you just save and publish the assignment, because it will not appear in the gradebook normally unless you publish it. The column won't appear in the gradebook unless you publish it. So it's ready to go. Now let's go back and look at the gradebook and see if we can find that column that we just created. There it is. Usually it appears at the far right-hand end of it. And you can just drag it into wherever it makes sense. This is an assignment, so I'll put it in with my assignments. Maybe make it the last one. Unfortunately, Canvas won't push that over. Where'd that manual column? There it went. I pulled it one too far. Okay. So now I can, this is part of the, I put that in the homework assignments assignment group. So this will be weighted 50%. 50% of the grade is coming from that group. This grade column will have an equal impact on the grade to any of the other assignment columns here, homework assignment columns, and I can just enter grade very quickly into the column, referring to my paper gradebook or wherever I have those grades. Will the students see the manually made column? Yes, it's to them it'll appear just as the columns that are associated with assessments that are performed within Canvas. Yeah, somebody had a question about extra credit. How would I make this an extra credit column? Make this assignment extra credit. That's brutally simple in Canvas. You just go back to the assignment, edit it, and make the point value, the possible points, 0. Now that's an extra credit column. It's extra credit because if a student gets a grade in that column, that number will be added to the numerator of the percentage fraction, but nothing will be added to the denominator. The possible points aren't increased by that column, but the points that the student earned can be. So any assessment that has a points possible of 0 is by definition or is by consequence extra credit. It raises that student's grade, but it doesn't penalize students who choose not to complete that assignment, which is how extra credit should be, of course. Because a student who doesn't complete that assignment doesn't have their possible points increased. So it's not going to, not doing that assignment will not put them at a competitive disadvantage, or will not cause them to, their grade to be devalued. So that's all you have to do to make something extra credit in Canvas is give it a 0 point value. Good question. Righty. That is, you can also create a manual grade column for entering letter grades manually, which is one of my favorites. I can go back to assignments. I can create another dummy assignment, if you will. I'm going to call this final letter grade. We have a value, point value of 0. It's just a column into which I'm going to enter a letter. To ensure that I can do that, I need to set this grade display as to letter grade text. And no submission again, and save and publish. Now I can go to the gradebook. That will probably be out here to the right. Yep, there it is. I can put that, that's probably where I want it. So now I can go through, and at the end of the term, I can just enter letter grades according to my criteria rather than Canvas's. So I can sort the gradebook on total grade, high to low. That sorts the whole gradebook on the total column. So my best students will be at the top here, and my least effective will be at the bottom. I can just work my way down that total column and say, well, here I am at maybe 88. And then there's a big jump, and the next one's like 84 or something like that. So that's a natural break in the grades. Maybe I'll give everybody with 88 and above an A, and everybody with 84 and below something else, and so on, which was always the way I assigned grades. Also gave me the, well, I won't go any further into that, but that's another option, gradebook option that you have. Can you combine columns so that students see one grade for a project that has multiple components? Now, each assessment has its own gradebook column. You can't combine columns or split them. It's a fairly one-to-one, straightforward thing. One assessment, one gradebook column. If you have a series of assessments that are part of a logical group of assessments, you can make an assignment group for them. And the students will see, and each assignment group has its own average column here that you can't remove or hide from the gradebook. So you could just put the multiple parts of that logical assessment into their own assignment group and weight them separately from everything else, and yet have a percentage grade displayed for the students for that assignment group. Here's a good question. What if you wanted to put an extra credit question on a test? How would you do that? Well, you would just, actually you can't override the possible point values for a test. That is determined by the sum of the point values of the questions in the test. What you can do in a test is put in what are called fudge points. Let's go to quizzes, the quizzes tool here, and go to, actually I want to go to the gradebook. Let's see, I've got some quizzes that have been automatically graded here. My syllabus quiz in this course consisted only of objective questions, in which case Canvas was able to grade the test without any input from me. If I go to this assessment, click the right arrow next to it, and I've got to get into this pretty quickly, and go to the Speedgrader. This is what we're about to look at next, the Speedgrader. I can see what the student achieved with each question. I could give a student extra credit on a question by just entering a number here that was higher than what they were awarded automatically. Could be greater than the nominal point value of the question. I can make that 2 points. Canvas would be perfectly happy with that. I can also, at the end here, I can also throw in fudge points. So I could just raise the, or lower, if I put in a negative number, the student's score on that test. And update the score. Okay. And now that student is 1.5 points more than they had before, because I bumped up question 1 for whatever reason. So that you can do. You can't override a test grade, though. You could do that in Blackboard, but you can't here. You can't just put in whatever. Not in the Speedgrader, at any rate. You could, however, go to the Gradebook and type and click on a grade and change it. And that will override the grade. Okie dokie. Now let's talk about the process. We've seen pretty much what there is to see in the Gradebook, display options, management, things like that. Now let's look at the grading process itself. For objective quizzes, the grading process is the Canvas grades the test. When you create the test, you tell Canvas what the right answer is. It's a multiple choice question, or a fill in the blank question, or a true false question, or matching question, whatever. You give Canvas the right answers when you create the question, and Canvas then grades the test. Or at least it grades those questions. It grades the objective questions in the test. Subjective questions are another matter. Usually essay questions. Canvas can't grade those. When Canvas gets to the point where it can, we're in deep trouble. They won't need us anymore. So let's hope that doesn't happen in our working lifetimes. Mine's a little closer to being over than yours is. So you got a little more to worry about than I do. I hate to tell you this, but there are systems now that artificial intelligence systems that can and have been used to grade essay submissions. They're quite controversial, and their accuracy and appropriateness is under great debate, but they do work to one extent or another. That's really kind of scary. But if a quiz contains questions that Canvas cannot grade, that is subjective questions, usually essay questions, instead of seeing a number for the grade, initially what you will see is a little submission symbol. This is the Canvas's submission symbol in the Gradebook, an indication that there is something waiting there to be graded by you. The student has turned something in and you need to grade it. That's what that symbol means. And we see that symbol throughout the Gradebook when students have turned things in that need grading. So it's a needs grading symbol. To do that grading, you will click on the cell, and that will tell you if it's a quiz, it will tell you the student so far has 2 points on that quiz. That was apparently what the student got from the objective part of that test. But there's some subjective question in there that Canvas can't grade. To get yourself to where you can grade that, you click the right arrow here that pops up in the cell when you click on it. And you get a panel sliding in from the right here, which gives you some information about this assessment. And more importantly, gives you a link to the Speedgrader, which is your grading interface, your grading tool in Canvas. Those of you who are familiar with grading in Blackboard, of course, will be very comfortable with this because this is the same tool you used in Blackboard. It's made by a company called Box. And both Blackboard and Canvas license this tool for use in their learning management systems. So it's very, very similar to what we had in Blackboard. In the case of a test, and we'll see what this looks like with a homework assignment and with a graded discussion as well. But in the case of a test, Canvas first displays the student's submission. So this is how you see your students' test submissions, is by going to the gradebook, clicking on either the grade or the submission symbol and selecting the Speedgrader, and Canvas will show you what the student answered and whether they got each one right or not. You can override grades. Let's say this was a bad question and you feel like the student should have gotten credit for it. You can override that if you like by typing into the question value box. But here's a question, here's an essay question that Canvas couldn't grade. What do we mean when we talk of a flipped classroom? That was something the student was supposed to type an answer to. The student received it when they took the test, they received a text box with this question that they could type their answer into. And this student said, lectures. Student apparently has a problem with C's or can't type with a damn, which is real possible too. Lectures at home, homework, and I'm going to give them a pass on that. Lectures at home, homework in class, which is the most concise possible definition of what a flipped classroom is. Instead of lecturing in class, you go over the homework. You do the lecturing online, record the lectures, the student watches them before class, comes in, and you work on the homework in class. It's a wonderful paradigm. It's been shown to have great value, instructional, pedagogical value. And that was an issue in the course from which I took this example. And you can, I'm going to give that maybe 5.5. could have bloviated a little more. I would have liked to have seen a few more words. Indeed, I can put in a comment to that effect here. A little more verbosity would have been appreciated. And then I can update the score, and now the student will get their full grade. I can also, over here on the right, put in more general comments about the test. I can upload a file with comments. I can record a video with comments, or I can do something else that I'll show you in a minute. I'd rather show you these tools when we talk about grading homework assignments, because they're always the same part of they're always part of the Speedgrader. So here now the grade of the test, grade for the test is 9.5, because I gave the student almost full credit on question 3, 9.5 out of 10. So I just click submit to put that into the gradebook, to save that grade to the gradebook. And I go back and look, and here's that 9.5. Here's that grade right here. And the student now can see it in their grades tool, and it's being computed into the student's final or total grade, and so on. So that's how you would grade essay questions within a test. Let's also look at how we would grade a homework assignment. Got a homework assignment here with a submission we can grade. Somewhere. Where did I put that? There it is. This was an assignment. If I can't remember what the homework assignment was about, I can click on it and edit it, and it will tell me, okay, here were the instructions for the student. In your own words, define the term screencasting. List 3 applications for it and list hardware and software requirements required. Boy, that was kind of redundant, wasn't it? Please upload your answer as a Word document. I have a reason for asking for that. We'll see that in a moment. When I created the assignment, I gave it a point value here. I made it possible for the students to submit the assignment either by text entry or file upload, but given my instructions up there, I probably should take the text entry off. I want them to upload a file, and I want that file to be a Word document, which would mean it would have an extension, file extension of .doc or .docx. Canvas allows me to do that. Now the student can't upload anything except a Word document. And a Word document can be produced by almost any word processor that the student might use.
I love that feature.
Yeah, it saves a lot of back and forth. A student, for instance, using a Mac with Pages can save or export their document as a Word document. That's the capability in Pages. You can do that with OpenOffice Writer, and things like that as well. So this eliminates a lot of hassles on your part. You're not going to get files that you can't open this way. And that's good enough for now. So let me save this those changes I made. And before I go on and show you the use of the Speedgrader in grading an assignment, I'd like to show you something else. That this is a grading adjunct, an extra possibility that can also be used for essay questions and tests or for discussion forums. But it makes more sense to see it the first time with a homework assignment, where the student is going to write something in all probability and upload it. Of course, the student could be drawing a picture and uploading it as well, in which case the same concept I'm about to show you would apply. And that's the concept of a rubric. A rubric, of course, is a series of step-by-step rules for assigning a grade. It defines partial credit, basically. If a question is such that the student might get some aspects of it right and others wrong, and might deserve some credit but not full credit, then a rubric would be appropriate, because it allows you to lay out for the students in advance exactly how much each aspect of this assignment is worth. And when you're grading, it makes it a lot easier for you to grade quickly and to be consistent from one student to the next, because everybody gets the same criteria applied to the determination of partial credit, as opposed to, that looks like about an 8 out of 10 for me, which is unfortunately something I'm too commonly associated with. So a rubric is a nice thing to have, and you can create one right here for this assignment by clicking on the Add Rubric button. A rubric is basically a table with rows and columns. Each row is a grade criterion. Some aspect of the assignment that the student must satisfy. Each column is a so-called rating. It's a measure of how well the student satisfied the criterion. And you can have as many criteria, that's as many rows as you like, and you can have as many ratings, as many columns as you like. And each criterion doesn't have to have the same number of ratings. This doesn't make a lot of sense conceptually. It didn't to me the first time until I saw an example of a rubric. So let's make one here. It doesn't take very long. I can do this in the time I have left and still show you how to grade discussions. I think I better get going. You're given your first row and a generic criterion and a couple of generic ratings. All right, I got to keep in mind that this assignment was worth 10 points overall. And it's kind of got multiple parts. I had them define the term, list 3 applications, and then list requirements with no number associated with it. So I've got really kind of 3 parts to this question. That would give me neatly 3 criteria. Now your criteria might be much more abstract than that. You know, if it's a writing assignment, you could evaluate grammar, style, punctuation, things like that separately, and each one could be a criterion. But I'm keeping this as concrete as possible to make this an easy concept, I hope. So my first criterion might be, did they define the term screencasting properly? So I can edit the description of the criterion by clicking the little pencil icon within this box that allows me to edit this. And I'll just say quality of definition. I could put in a much longer description that would pop up if I moused over the criterion. I'm not going to take the time to do that here. Then I update the criterion. So now I have that criterion labeled properly. Okay, ratings. Well, my first rating is usually the highest possible. Oh, and I have to decide, well, I've got 3 things here and 10 points to distribute among them. So maybe I'll decide that this criterion is worth 5 points overall. Canvas didn't know that in advance. It just saw that the question as a whole was worth 10 points, so it guessed 5 points. But I can change that, obviously. So my rating here for full marks, full points, full credit would be 5 points, I think, in this case, by my decision, not by Canvas's. And the rating title might be accurate description. And update. So that's going to get a perfectly accurate description, is going to get 5 points. And then I have the other option here that's presented to me is nothing. It's all or nothing. But probably I want at least one intermediate stage in between full credit and no credit. To get that, I can add a rating by clicking on this plus sign. And this intermediary rating, I think I'm going to maybe give 2.5 points, half credit. Rating title might be acceptable. Not great, but acceptable definition. Or whatever fits your criteria, or whatever fits your fancy. And that adds a new rating. And I could keep adding ratings in between these as well. For no points, maybe instead of just saying no marks, I might say no definite, no or unacceptable.
You have one safe voice.
muted that. No or unacceptable definition. There's a lot of creativity in creating rubrics. I'm not being that creative here, but you would apply your own standards to this, obviously. And the total point rating for that criterion is 5 points. That's half of my question. But I probably need 2 more criteria though. One about the applications and one for the list of hardware and software requirements. Okay. I can add a criterion, a new criterion, and call it applications. Create it. Now I have a new row to my rubric. I've already named it, so let's see, for full marks here, if I edit that, I'm going to have 3 points. I'm going to give 3 points for if they get it perfectly right. And for this, I'll say 3 correct applications. Then I can add more criteria. I might have a criterion that gave 2 points credit. I could call that 2 correct applications. Might even spell correct correctly. Be a good idea. So I got 3 points for 3, 2 points for 2, and it won't be difficult to figure out. This would be 1 correct application. So I've got all the bases covered there. Or 0 points for no applications, no correct applications.
So an application can be could be called
in this case, what would you use screencasting for? This will make a little more sense when you see the answer that this student has submitted, okay, or a student has submitted. So 3 applications for screencasting might be lecture capture, software tutorial, or a PowerPoint lecture or something like that, just to give it something to hang it on. Now I still though have to deal with hardware and software requirements. If I add another criterion, new criterion, just call it requirements, create the criterion. I've got 1 for full marks and maybe a half credit. Oops, excuse me. I don't want that to be 5 points. I want it full credit for this to be 2 points. So it adds up to the appropriate number of total points for the question, which were 10. I can add 1 and give half credit. And 0 for no credit or no marks, doesn't matter. So now I have a very structured plan for grading this assignment.
What do you put in the range?
Pardon?
Range, where it says
You
range.
can also set ranges. That's a little beyond the scope of this demonstration right now, but that's something we will be that we have in more detailed documentation in other places.
Can you say it in 2 words? Like what is it for?
Not really right now, because we've got quite a bit to do yet.
All right.
And I've got to get done. I want to get done by 4 o'clock or as closely thereafter as possible. But I'll be happy to talk about that later. You will use this rubric for assignment grading, so you need to tell Canvas that. And then you just, you can also remove the points from the rubric if you don't want the students to see point values, but I think it's instructive for them to see them. So I now create the rubric, and that rubric becomes a part of this assignment. And the students will see this rubric when they pull up the assignment the first time, so they'll know what your expectations are.
That's brilliant.
Never a bad thing. So it's worth taking the time. It also vastly speeds up your grading process. Now I want to show you how that works. Let's go to back to the gradebook, and I have an assignment submission from a dummy student, you should forgive the term, for this assignment, which was define screencasting. Let's see. There it is. And there it is. I know that's a submission that has not been graded. That's what that icon tells me. I click on that submission icon, I hit the right arrow, and I bring up the Speedgrader. Here's the student submission. First off, it is a Word document. How do I know that? Because I see these little markup tools up here. Those will work only, those will appear only if certain types of files are submitted. Word documents, PDFs, open office documents will work with this and will allow you to mark them up. Excel spreadsheets, you can mark up using these markup tools. And a couple of other file formats. But Word documents are always safe. That's why I asked for a Word document, because then I could do things like this. I can, for instance, highlight the word screencast and click on a highlight annotation. Canvas will highlight that, and I can click and leave a comment. Have you, whatever, and just, oops, I can go back and edit that. Good thing. Press enter. Anyway, you can highlight a word or phrase or an entire paragraph and type a comment. You can do a point annotation. Click right there. Like we have any other kind now. Think about digital life, like whatever kind of life do we have right now? This is our social interaction. Zoom meetings. You can do free text annotations. You can just put text anywhere. You can do strikeout annotations. I wanted them to use the word screen recording instead of screencast. I can strike that out and say, do you mean screen recording? Actually, the term screencast is fine. I'm just trying to give you examples here of how these annotation tools work. You can do, you can draw on this, draw arrows or draw circles around stuff, and then type a comment, and so on. Allows you to, in effect, blue pencil the document with editors' marks, editors' comments, and so on, and give the student feedback on their writing. Or if it's a picture, you can, certain types of pictures, you can do those types of annotations as well. So that's one kind of kind of feedback you can give to the students. You can also look at your rubric, at a compact view of your rubric. And you can use that rubric in your grading. Rather than just having to look at this answer and read it and think about it, and then just, you know, hold your hand up to your head and type in a grade, you can do this systematically. Well, this is a great definition of screencasting, so it deserves full credit. There's my 5 points for full credit, my 2.5 for half credit, 0 credit. That's definitely worth 5 points. I just click on that box in the rubric and Canvas awards 5 points for that part of the question. On the applications, and here at the bottom, they gave 4 good applications of screencasting. So definitely they deserve full credit for that. So that's another 3 points. And Canvas is keeping book on this. But there's no mention here of hardware or software requirements. They ignored that part of the question. So that's a 0 on that part of it. And Canvas adds things up for you. So you just click your way through each criterion on the rubric. Click, 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 click. Very quick. You're evaluating each question the same way, or each submission the same way, and you're very quickly adding up the points without even having to penetrate your cerebral cortex, and click save, and there's the grade, which you can come back and override if you want to, but usually you wouldn't. So that's the beauty of the rubric. And then this is the rubric now compresses to remind you what you selected from it, and the student will see this feedback as well in their grades tool. In addition to that kind of comment, you can just type a comment here into the general comments box, or you can upload a file with comments in it. Could be a Word document. Though my favorite type of file to upload in the case of a writing assignment is a screencast, where using some tool like Zoom or Snagit, Camtasia, I bring the student's paper up on the screen that they've submitted. I can always download their submission to my local hard drive. I download that to my local hard drive, I bring it up on the screen, and I use an annotation tool to mark up the document in real time while I'm talking about it, which is even better than the markup, these markup tools. And it's like sitting down with a student and going over their paper with them, except I never have to be in the same room with the student, which of course is a really good idea right now. So you can provide very detailed feedback that way using this upload, file upload comment, file attachment. You can, if you just need to talk to them and you don't need to show them their assignment, you can click this tool, which will allow you to record a little video. I have to select the right webcam here. Pointed at me. There we go, more or less at me. There we are. You can do this with your webcam if you're not in Zoom at the time. I have a second webcam just for this demonstration here. Obviously, Canvas is hearing me. That's what this bouncing blue bar means. I might have to pick the right microphone, but usually not if I have a microphone. And then I just start recording. Hi, great job on the definition. Way more than minimal necessary to get full credit. and your applications were wonderful. They were all correct, and you put in more than requested. But you forgot to talk about hardware and software requirements. Sorry about that, but I had to knock a couple of points off of that. But great work. The part you did was exemplary. Thanks for the good work on that. Or something, some bloviation to that effect.
Very thoughtful.
And then I click save, and that becomes a part of the grading record. Takes it a second to upload to Canvas. Especially with Zoom running in the background. Come on. And in a second, it's going to appear as a little embed here. And the student will see this in their grades tool, and will be able to click on it and play it back. But here's my favorite. This only works if you're using the Chrome web browser. Great work, period, exclamation point. Your definition and applications were impeccable, period. You forgot to include requirements for hardware and software. Nice work nonetheless. Anybody know the statement of Clarke's first law? Named after Arthur Clarke, the man who dreamed up communication satellites and had a long and wrote 2001 and things like that.
Regarding positive feedback?
Clarke's first law states that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. This qualifies. This meets that criterion for Clarke's first law. That's pretty freaking amazing. It was perfect. As you saw when I was dictating, it's perfect dictation. This is a plugin for Chrome that you can access in other ways and play with. But it's been integrated with this particular function in Canvas. I don't think it will apply anywhere else in Canvas.
Dave, where is that located?
That is right, this symbol right here.
Thank you.
If you want to record voice or do speech to text feedback, you click on this little speaker icon here. Unfortunately, that's the only place I can think of in Canvas where that icon appears. This is the only place that this particular capability is integrated into Canvas.
That would be nice in other sections as well.
Wouldn't it though? There are other ways to do that, but most of those require some serious expenditure of dinero. So this is one that's built in for free into Canvas. Okay, once I have all that done, I can just click submit. The comments are submitted. They're in the student's grades tool. The grade is in the gradebook. And I'm done with that assignment, and I can go on to the next student. Indeed, if I had several of those to do, I could just go from student to student to student without leaving the Speedgrader. For instance, and forgive me, I just need a couple more minutes to show you how to grade a graded discussion. Here I have indications that these three students have contributed to this discussion topic. What could I do with screencasting? To see their posts without having to go to the discussion forum itself and look for them, I can just click on the symbol, the submission symbol, click the right arrow, and go again to the Speedgrader. And it gives me all of their posts. I can read them right here, and maybe I can just assign a grade just by looking at those. I could have a rubric for this as well. Or if I want to see these posts in context, I can click View the Full Discussion here, and I'll see them, but then I have to look for them. And in discussion that length, it's no problem. When there are 100 posts in that, it's a little harder, but still you can see them in context here. And then you can go back to your, just click the back arrow and go back to that student's posts and just say, well, it appears to have met the criteria. That's 10. I have the same options for comments and so on that I had with the assignment. And I can just submit that. And that's how you grade a gradable discussion. And you go back, and then I can go to the next student without leaving the Speedgrader and just grade my way right through that very quickly. And that's got me to the bottom of my outline here. So the first thing I like to do is go back and look at the questions that people have put into the chat tool to this point. But I will take more questions after I get through these. I'm just going back to the chat tool. Let's take a look. Thank you for putting your information in there for me. Let's see. I graded assignments on Canvas, made comments, and the assignments are still in ungraded assignments. I'm sorry, Diana, I don't really understand there exactly what you're saying.
Okay, Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little low. Can you get a little closer to your microphone?
Hello?
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, when I go to the people on Canvas and I click on the right hand side, there is something that you see all the students, their participation, and there is a column there when
Diana, I am so sorry, but your audio is breaking up on you. It sounds like there may be an issue with your internet connection.
David, what she's suggesting is that on Cengage you can make comments, but they don't integrate with Canvas. It stays in the Cengage shell.
Thank you for thank you. Yes, that is correct. And no, there's not anything you can do about that. But your students will have access to those comments within Cengage. But the comments do not come over. The grades do, or should, if the course is properly paired with the Cengage course, or the My Whatever Lab course, or whatever publisher's resource you're using. But the comments that you put in the Cengage do not transfer, to my knowledge, do not transfer over into Canvas.
Are there trainings on integrating Cengage with Canvas through SDCCD?
Not through us, because we basically have no access to Cengage's sites.
Very good.
Our ability to see things and train on things ends when you hit the Canvas wall. So that's something that Cengage has to provide, unfortunately. I wish we could do better. But a good question. Okay, going to the next one here. Already answered that one. There's the one about Cengage. And thanks again for interpreting that. I appreciate it. Will recent drops be accepted by Peoplesoft and Canvas given the extended drop deadline? That extended drop deadline has been programmed into our integration process. As I mentioned very early on today, when we were talking about the gradebook, we know that there are students who have been dropped from your courses who are still showing up in your gradebook and are still in your communication list. So if you send out a course-wide announcement or something, they're still getting announcements from you and so on. And we apologize for that. That was something that happened due to a change in Peoplesoft that we had no control over. And we are cleaning up the mess. and they've been testing the solution for about a week. It seems to be fine. They're going to implement it tomorrow afternoon, sometime before 4 o'clock. And you should see those students disappear from the already dropped students disappear from your gradebook, as they should have right off the bat. We had this problem fixed last semester, and somebody let the bugs loose again in Peoplesoft. So sorry about that, but we are taking care of it. We sincerely hope. The tests look good, so everything should be fine late tomorrow afternoon. What if the student comes 1 month later? How will the grades affect the student? Well, of course, you would probably set due dates on your assessments, and if the student submitted late, you would know it. Or you can set an availability date on an assessment, and the student can't even submit it after the availability date. Let's take a look, for instance, at that homework assignment we graded, the defined screencasting assignment. There it is. You can always go to the assignment itself, or the assessment, by clicking on its name in the gradebook, in case you can't remember quite what that was about, which happens to me more and more frequently these days. So you can get to the actual page that defines the assessment. And if I edit that and go down to the bottom here to the dates section, I can set not only due dates, which just tell the student when they should, the time limit on when they should submit the assignment, but I can also set available until dates, which mean that after the available until date, the student won't be able to submit the assignment. So you would probably have available until dates on your homework assignments and your quizzes and your gradable discussions, such that if a student came in a month later, they wouldn't be able to submit it, if that was your question. The students will, if they come in a month later, if they submitted the assignment on time, they will be able to go back and see their grades at any time throughout the rest of the course by going to their iteration of the grades tool, which looks something like this. Let me go into student view here. You know that you can see your course as your students see it by going to the Home button and selecting Student View. That logs you in as an actual student, called Test Student, that is provided with your class. So now you're acting as a real student. You can do anything a real student could do. You can take tests, submit assignments, whole 9 yards. So this is a way you can test the functioning of your class for your students, and it's obviously a very good idea to do that. Before you post a quiz for your students, you might want to take it as your test student to make sure it's behaving the way you think it will, and it looks the way it should. But anyway, this student can go and look at his or her grades, and this is how the student sees their grades. If I go to that defined screencasting assignment, the student can see that they got 8 out of 10. They can see the comments that you left for them, including the little video. Hi, great job on the definition. They can see your typed or speech-to-text comments here as well. That's what that little conversation thing gives them. Oops, I forgot. I checked that box that said don't count this toward the final grade, and I forgot to uncheck it, darn it. So that warns them that this didn't count for anything. I didn't do that deliberately, sorry. Normally they won't see those two little icons there. Sorry about that. They can also see more information about the assignment by clicking on the name of the assignment. And that's where they can see, if they click View Feedback, that's where they can see that markup feedback that you gave. And they can see your other comments as well, including the media comment. So that the students can do that at any time after you grade the assignment.
What's that little icon in the previous screen? There's like a paper. The third icon at on the right.
Oh, that is also has to do with the fact that this is not considered in the total, and it shows. Oh, that shows them the rubric also.
Oh, okay. What about the letter T in my certification course? I saw letter T. What does that mean?
Oh, in your grade feedback.
Great, yeah.
Okay.
Do I need to do anything about it?
No, you don't. You're fine. T. Trying to remember.
Maybe text?
Text entry submitted, not graded. Yeah, that means that was instead of a file uploaded, you were given a text box to enter your answer into, and that tells the instructor that a text entry has been submitted but not yet graded. It tells you that too.
Okay.
When it's graded, that T will be replaced by a number or a letter grade, depending on how that column is set up.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Sorry, that one threw me for a minute. What I did, by the way, which might be useful to you at some point, what I did when I couldn't remember that, I just went to Google and typed in the question, T in gradebook cell, Canvas.
Excellent.
Brought up the answer instantly. So you can be Dr. Google. All right. If you have a question about publisher's integration again, if everything is set up properly and the option has been picked in the publisher's site to send the grades to Canvas, then the grades from Cengage's product or from Pearson's My Whatever Lab or Wiley's product, whatever, should appear in your Canvas gradebook. And if they're not, there's something not set quite right in the pairing between the two. So that should happen. That much I can tell you. I give a quiz each week for the first 8 weeks. Great. However, it's worth extra credit. It's not included in the weighted score. What's your suggestion to accomplish adding the extra credit points at the end of the semester? Well, if the quiz has a gradebook column, it has to have a gradebook column in order for you to have that added in automatically. With a 0 points possible, when the grade computation's done, students who don't take those extra credit quizzes won't be penalized, but the ones who do will benefit if they get some point value from it. That is easier to accomplish if you are weighting your grades by individual assessment and points possible. I'm not quite sure how you do that if you were weighting by assignment group. I'll have to think about that. If the extra credit quizzes were not being given in Canvas, or if for whatever reason a gradebook column was not created, you could always create a gradebook column manually in the manner that I showed you, and just enter the extra credit points into that column manually. and that would have them counted as well. And Espen basically just said the same thing. Thank you. Let's see. Answered that one. Answered that one. Dave, if you make up your test and want to submit it to Canvas, how do you submit it? I assume that means you as the instructor. How you create a test in Canvas and make it available to your students. You can create a quiz in Canvas in a number of ways. Let me get out a student view here. Students can't create tests. To create a quiz in a course, you have one of two options. You can go to the Quizzes tool and add a quiz, or you can go to your modules, which is my preference, because this kills two birds with one stone. You can go to your modules and you can go to the module where you want the quiz to appear and click the plus sign, the add item button for the module, and choose quiz to be added. Tell Canvas it's a new quiz and give it a name. Just call this topic 1 quiz. I would call it whatever was appropriate in my course, and add the item to the module. That appears at the bottom of the module. It's a blank quiz right now. There's no content to it, so I have to add content to the quiz by clicking on the name of the quiz and selecting Edit from the next screen. I can change the name of the quiz at this point if I wish. I can give quiz instructions. They might be more complicated than that, but that'll do for now. I can decide whether this is going to be a graded or a practice quiz. Practice quiz doesn't count toward their grade, but they can take it for practice. That's not a bad strategy to give them a practice quiz before you give them the real quiz, so that they're used to at least to the quiz taking interface the first time. You can set the assignment group if that's appropriate. The test in my case. I don't recommend shuffling answers for multiple choice and multiple answer questions. That can cause issues. Like, what do you do if one of the possible answers is all of the above? You can set a time limit. You can allow, by default, they get 1 try on the test. You can give them more. And you can choose which score to keep, normally the highest, unless you're a hard person, in which case you might take the latest. If they keep trying, they can go, you can do yourself harm if you keep trying. You can you determine when and what the students see for feedback. If you don't want them to see anything, you uncheck that box. If you want them to see their test right after they take it, right after they submit it, they can see what they got wrong, but they can't by default see the correct answers to the test. You can limit them to just seeing it once and then never more. And you can let them see the correct answers either immediately or after a certain date or a range of dates. Those options are up to you. The only way to prevent the students from seeing the feedback right away is to uncheck that box. And indeed, they won't be able to see their test paper or their test submission in their grades tool if you uncheck this either. So you have limited options there. You can have 1 question at a time displayed. That makes the test a bit more secure, makes it harder for them to copy the questions off the screen. I'm not going to worry about these assignments. And you can set dates, as we just discussed. That's how you set test options. Then you add questions to the test. If you're creating questions from scratch, you punch the new question button. You choose the question type, true, false. Canvas is the most intuitive LMS on the market. It's true, false. I get to pick either true or false as the correct answer. I'll say true. That's certainly what Instructure would have you believe. And a lot of people have that opinion. Update the question. And there's your first question, just a simple true, false question. The student is provided with two options and they can pick among them. You can also find questions in databases or in question banks if you're fortunate enough to have those. Your list of question banks will appear on the left here. You can pick questions, one or more questions from that question bank. Click Add Questions. And each student will see this particular question, these particular questions in this order, but you didn't have to type them out. You were able to just pull them from the bank. You can also create what are called question groups. You can call the group anything you want. You have to give it a name. You link it to a question bank, which you have in your course. Let's see, find something here. This question bank has a bunch of questions in it. I'll select that one. Select the bank. That links the bank to the group. Now there were 7 questions in that group. I might tell Canvas to pick 2 of those for each student. Each student will get 2 questions from that question bank, but they'll be picked randomly. So no 2 students are probably going to get the same 2 questions. Obviously, the bigger the question bank and the fewer questions you pick, the lower the likelihood that 2 people will get the same set of questions, but they're picked randomly, so it's possible, but unlikely. You can also set the number of points per question here if you want to in the bank, because that's the only place you have to specify a point value for a question bank. When you have that all set up, you click Create Group, and the students, there'll be 2 more questions in this test selected at random. Let's say that's everything you need to do. You save and publish that quiz, excuse me. If I preview it, you see what the test looks like to the students. There's my true false question, a couple of multiple choice and another true false. And here are my 2 questions that were randomly selected from that question bank. Those again should be different for each different student, or at least probably will be. This one happens to be an essay question. Oh, that student lost the lottery. Okay. And the student, when they were done, would just submit the quiz. So that's basically the quiz creation cycle in Canvas. And now that quiz is published, I did publish it, I believe, did I not? Yes. Now there will be a column in the gradebook for that quiz automatically. Yeah, there it is, topic 1 quiz. I can drag that over here to somewhere else rather than the end of the gradebook as needed. As the students take that quiz, submission icons will appear here because there was an essay. Well, it would depend. If there were an essay question in the quiz, you'd get a submission icon. If there were nothing but objective questions, you'd just get a number, a grade. Since I created that test from within the module, there's a link to that quiz in the module already. And it's ready for the students to take. If I had created the quiz in the quizzes tool, it would be exactly the same process for creating the quiz, but when I got done, there would be no link for this quiz in any module. You'd have to go to the modules tool and then create a link to the quiz separately by selecting Add Item, Quiz, and selecting that quiz from the list of available quizzes and clicking Add Item, and that would put a link to that quiz in the desired module. I hope that answered the question. That's just about everything there is about the test quiz generation and grading cycle there. If you add an essay question, oh, this is about extra credit, right? Okay. So you can give more points than an assignment is worth in the gradebook. Yes, you can. And that would constitute extra credit for that student. I have a rubric already created. Will I be able to cut and paste? Yes. Or upload my Word doc rubric? No. You can't upload your Word doc. Oh, I see. You have a rubric created in Word. Unfortunately, yeah, you just have to copy paste that content into your rubric generation tool in Canvas. I know of no way to import a rubric done in a Word document into Canvas. Another question in that vein that I get a lot, though, is what if I have test questions typed into Word? Can I import that word test typed in Word into Canvas and have it appear as a Canvas test that the students can take like any other Canvas test? And the answer is yes, qualified yes, in that certain test questions will come over and others won't. But your most common test questions like multiple choice questions, multiple answer questions, true false questions, matching questions, and essay questions can be typed into Word and then imported into Canvas. Or if you already have them typed into a Word document, they can be imported into Canvas as question banks so that they can be used in future tests. There's a process for doing that, unfortunately, which is rather complex. It's not difficult, but there are 9 steps to it. And it's something that you would do only if you had a lot of Word tests that you wanted to get into Canvas. There is a tutorial. Oops, that's not what I wanted. On our on-demand video site, sdccdolvid.org. Canvas test import, I think. Search will do it. Yeah. Importing a test typed in MS Word or other word processors into Canvas in 9 steps. The tutorial only takes 15 minutes to run, so it's not that complicated because it always takes longer to talk about something than it does to do it. If you're interested in doing this, let me know. I can help you with Okay, we got that. All right. Oh, you all are very kind. Thank you. Dave, please ask for more money. Great advice. My contract runs out at the end of June with them. I haven't heard any indications that they're going to renew it, but I haven't heard anyone saying they're not either, so I don't know. When I clicked on Student Interaction Report under Ungraded Assignments, though I graded assignments, they are still, oh, on the Interaction Report, they're showing as ungraded, even though they are graded. Whoa. I have not seen that before. I'll take a look at that. I don't know why that would happen, quite honestly. But I take it, Diana, I take it that the students are seeing their grades properly. They're showing up in the grade book, which is what you really care about, of course. But I don't know about that. I'll look into that and see if I see anything. It may be a Canvas glitch that's known. I don't know. Yes, this this one is being recorded right now. And I will be posting it hopefully sometime this evening on our on-demand site at sdccdolvid.org. Let me put that in the chat tool. The site is sdccdolvid.org. There's the link to it in the chat tool. Remember, you can save that chat log. If you want to see our previous Zoom seminars on all of the topics, at least all the ones I remember to record, go to in the top bar on the site, there's a button marked Workshop Archives. Just click that. And here we are. Here's the session from yesterday on the orientation to the faculty certification program course. And that one, beware, that one ran 5.25 hours. Anyway, this one will be there in first place for a time as soon as I get it rendered and uploaded and linked into this site, which I should do tonight. Is it safe to assume that student-to-student interaction in the discussion board can only occur as the result of a teacher-initiated prompt? Basically, yes, because you put that prompt in, and the students reply to that prompt. By default, though, the students can create discussion topics in your discussion board and talk to one another, and they then create the prompt on that.
There was a student in my class who emailed me and said that her father passed away, and the class wanted to send her condolences, and since she has never replied to any of my prompts, we were not able to find a way to contact her. That's what I'm asking.
You could create a discussion topic specifically for that and say expressions of condolence for and her name, and then people could reply to that, and yeah, that would be a wonderful thing to do.
All right, thank you.
That's a wonderful idea. I've never heard anybody come up with that idea before. I love it. Cindy, about a message to Lori about Casalino about getting into the flex enrollment for yesterday. Sure. And the flex system is totally honor bounds or honor code. So I would imagine she'll just put you in there, and then you can record your credit. But I certainly, if she asked me, I'll certainly be happy to confirm that you were there. Can you say anything about the source of test banks, from the publisher or from us? If so, how do you make it happen? Well, test banks can be acquired from your publisher. Some will still provide them. Some want you to use their product so they can charge your students through the yin-yang for access to it. But some still have test banks available, and you can get them. You want them in what is called QTI format, QTI, which happens to be the same format that's used for Blackboard. So if you have test banks made for Blackboard, chances are they'll import into Canvas as well. Also, publishers often have test generator programs like Easy Test or TestGen, which can produce, which can read these test banks and allow you to select questions for a particular question bank that you want to create, and then export that in a format that will import into Blackboard and or Canvas. If you pick the export format for Blackboard 9 or Canvas, you should get a QTI file, a zip file in QTI format that will import into Canvas. To import a test bank into Canvas, into your Canvas course, you go to the Settings link on the course menu. You select Import Course Content. And for content type, you select QTI zip file. Then you go and find the zip file that's been provided, and then just import it. And then the question banks will appear. The questions will appear in a question bank, and perhaps in a test as well under quizzes, depending on exactly how the question bank is structured. You may see them here, but you'll also see them under your question banks, which you get to using this little menu icon in the upper right-hand corner of the quizzes page on Canvas, and you select Manage Question Banks, and here your question banks will appear here. And these are the ones that you can select questions from when you're creating a test. You can edit them, you can add questions to them yourself, you can create your own question banks here, and you can share them with colleagues if you wish. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Oh, and you can also occasionally find tests in the Canvas Commons. Oop, there we go. Canvas Commons is a massive instructional object repository, and you can filter by quizzes, not banks, but by quizzes. But if you get a quiz, you can import it as a question bank as well. And you can type in a search like chemistry, was my field many years ago. Here are a bunch of quizzes. You can download these quizzes. Uh-oh. Ah, whew. Thought Chrome had locked me up there for a second. You can download these suckers. Download the quiz as a QTI zip file. Save that file into your local hard drive. Go back to your Canvas course. Go to your settings menu. Import course content. QTI zip file. Choose the file. From downloads, it was test banks. There it is. Open and import. That should work if that quiz file is properly formatted. Doesn't take long.
Can you filter it even further?
When you search the Commons, yes. You can filter by keyword. Indeed.
Can you show us how?
Yeah, you just add extra keywords. Let's take a look at this first. Now, if I go to quizzes and manage question banks from the menu up here. Ah, there it is. That's the one I just imported. Updated April 29th, 4:48 p.m. Yep, that's the one. So I can pull question banks right off the Canvas Commons. Let's go back to the Commons and see how you can filter further. What I did was just create a filter that said I wanted only quizzes, but I can also filter by grade level. I could pick stuff that was only from the San Diego Community College District, though that'd be kind of limiting because we haven't been using Canvas that long. All means people from all over the world. Right? So so you can filter. You can also take, you'll find images in here, discussion topics, audio files, videos, homework assignments, content modules, individual documents, Canvas pages, and even entire courses. Then you can filter by any of these types, or none of them, and you can just say.
What if I want to filter? Let's say I want to teach grammar, adverbs, or adjectives. Can I do that?
Yeah, you would do that by putting in the appropriate keywords. English grammar. And then you could also filter by type. I probably don't want to filter that by quiz, but I could. Or I could filter by full courses, or I can just take anything I can get. 44 results. There's a module, a couple of modules, a quiz, an entire course, another quiz, 2 more courses, a Canvas page. You can preview any of this stuff. It's all there for you to use. Some of them may ask for attribution, but quiz downloaded. You can put in the quiz instructions, quiz created by so-and-so and downloaded from the Canvas Commons or something like that. And there's a module full of grammar quizzes. Some of this stuff is just gold. And it's all there for you to use for free.
Who's got this kind of time?
That's the problem. Searching through and separating the wheat from the chaff takes time. It may be quicker to create your own. But
thank you so much.
There is some amazing stuff here.
Thank you.
You're certainly welcome. Good question. This means I can import the whole test bank from the publisher. Yeah. If the whole test bank from the publisher is in, yes. You can import whatever you need from the publisher if the publisher provides it in importable format, or provides you with an application that can produce an importable file like TestGen or EasyTest. If as some do, the publisher provides you the test banks as Word documents, then you have to go to that 9-step process I talked about, which I might do a session on someday. It's fun to be able to do this. It involves quite a few moving parts. Indeed, it's something of a Rube Goldberg apparatus, which is a very complex series of activities that accomplish a simple seeming goal in the most complicated way possible. You ever play Mousetrap with your kids? that's a Rube Goldberg machine, and or is called a Rube Goldberg machine. And the this process for importing a Word document is a little bit like that in a virtual sense, but it works, and it doesn't take that long to do once you do it the first time. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm at the bottom of the chat tool. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask?
I know you're in a rush, Dave, so I'll make this as quick as possible.
I am in, oh, no, I'm not in any rush. I'm fine.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to get off as close to.
No, I just wanted to finish the presentation within 2 hours. That was the only reason I rushed through that. Thanks.
All right, so I had my course set up in points.
Right.
Before all of this happened, and
right.
For various reasons, I want to leave it in points.
That works.
And the question is, and I think I know the answer, but because it's in points, when I have bonus questions on a test, it goes right. I'm sorry, we're getting an echo. When I have bonus questions on a test, say the test is worth 100 points, and I put 8 bonus points on it, and somebody gets 108, it does go in the grade book, and I just get that added to all the other points. Because I'm not doing it by percentages, that shouldn't make a difference.
Well, actually, if the test shows as having 108 points when you look at the information line for the test, then those are not extra credit points. Those are just 8 more points that the students are held responsible.
Right, but because it's a cumulative points and not a weighted grade, it just goes into the regular points.
Oh, yeah. And if you don't have the total column compute a percentage. And yet when you evaluate it manually, you just assume that the total points possible is 8 less. Then yeah, you're fine. Yeah, that's fine. That works. That meets your needs.
Because
it's only when you start computing percentages that you get into problems there.
Okay, good. That's what I needed. I just wanted to check.
I hear you.
Thank you, Dave.
My pleasure. Anybody else have anything else? I'll answer questions on any topic. Doesn't have to be Canvas. Wow, it's only we're only an hour over. That's that's pretty good for this facility.
Here's a question. I'm doing this right now.
I'm sorry. Yes.
So I had for some reason I ended up putting. I have in-class exercises that are 10 points and homeworks that are 15 points. And I ended up one day having. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I put the in-class exercise and the homework in the same column out of 25. Then I thought, wait a minute, I'm dropping one in-class exercise and I'm dropping 2 homeworks, and this could really skew that.
Oh yeah, that won't work.
So what I'm doing now is I'm making a column for the homework, and I'm going to move the homework grades. I can look at the Speedgrader and see how much was for the homework and how much was for the in-class exercise.
Right.
But when I'm in the 25-point column and I move something over to the homework column, it will not stay. Is that because the homework column says 0 points? I need to get that to say 15 points.
You should be able to put anything into that. This is a column you created manually.
It says 0.
And
that's what you put when you want it to be bonus work, usually. So it should be able to be there.
Oh yeah, just because the column is set up, the assignment that generates the column is set up to have 0 points.
Right.
possible. Doesn't mean you can't have a non-zero point value entered into that cell
Right.
for the student.
Well, I need to go back and fix that anyway and put 15 points there and take the other one down to 10. So
And be sure to do at least one, when you do something a little bit out of the box like that, be sure to do at least one computation by hand to make sure that the number that you're getting from Canvas is the one you expect.
okay, all right, great, thanks.
Trust but verify. Kyle Gorbachev. Okay.
Dave,
Yes.
hi.
Hi.
This is about the class the Canvas class that we have to pass the certification.
Understood.
Okay. I don't understand a doggone thing.
Okay.
Should I be focusing on the syllabus? It's so easy for me to start looking at everything else and then I'm overwhelmed.
Well, you certainly do want to read the syllabus, yes.
Yes, but you know
But
how it's got all that stuff at the bottom in the blue?
I can give you, I got a couple of things I can give you here fairly quickly, though.
Okay.
One, in the workshop archives,
Okay.
on the on-demand site,
Yes.
there's this
Yes.
orientation.
Yes.
that
I have
gave
one
you.
set up. Yes.
The first 20, 30 minutes of that was just a general description of the course.
Okay.
And then I started taking questions, and that went on for 5 more hours. But
Yes.
the first part of it was fairly compact, so you could watch that.
Okay.
But basically what happens in that course is that let me go into it.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Got it on my dashboard here somewhere. There it is. You get this opening page.
Yes.
At the bottom, you do have the syllabus. I would read the syllabus.
Yes.
There's a lot of good information in there.
Okay.
And even if everything doesn't make perfect sense the first time, it'll become clear as you work your way through.
Okay.
But you'll have seen the idea to start with. So it's worth reading the syllabus. Then you just go to module 1.
Okay.
That's how you get started. And you just start working your way from the top down.
Okay.
And they've got it set so you have to look at everything in order to proceed. Because right now you're probably not seeing module 2. You just see module 1 to start with.
Okay.
And
I hadn't even noticed. Okay.
you work your way through reading,
Okay.
reading, looking, viewing, and then you get to the assessments.
Yes. Okay.
Each module has some assessments in it. Those you have to complete satisfactorily, and they are graded. So in most cases, you can submit them more than once. Like with the quizzes, you can take all the quizzes twice. With the graded discussions and the assignments, you can post as many times as you like
Okay.
until you get it right. The point in this is not to put hurdles in your way. It's just that you learn the material. So if you have to submit an assignment 3 times before you get enough points on it to move on, fine. We don't care as long as you learn it in the end.
Okay.
It's not a race. It's a process.
Well, June
So-
30th to be here.
Though the more times you have to submit something, the longer it's going to take. The average on this course is about 20 hours of dedicated effort.
Yeah, I read
So-
that.
Yeah, I bet you saw that. It has been completed in as little as 8 hours,
So,
but that was by a long service faculty member who knew all the answers already anyway.
so all these trainings, like I've been taking, and I didn't know squat till I started sitting down doing these trainings with you. Are they going to help me with that?
Yes, many of them, the ones that were related to Canvas will, yes.
Okay. Okay. And
But
then if not, I can go look at,
Each of these things has lots of information about what to do and how to do it.
Okay.
They'll have links to videos that show you how to do certain things you're asked to do and all that. They're not just throwing you into them without support.
You're my
Like on this
support,
one,
baby.
Here you just read this and you
Yeah.
click reply
Okay.
and you type your own icebreaker where they ask you to
Talk about me.
discipline, yeah, talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell your discipline, your campus, what online experience, if any, you have. There's no wrong answers here. Why have you decided to enroll? Because somebody's pointing a gun at you and making you do it.
That's right, by June
Answer
30th.
answer one of the questions, what would your
Okay.
spirit animal be? Whatever. And then just type that into this box here and post the reply. And you're
That's
done
it.
with that.
Okay.
Just doesn't take very long.
All right.
That's all you have to do up to about module 5. When you get there, they start asking you to do things
Mm-hmm.
that carry out activities that you can't carry out in this course because you are a student. Your enrollment in this course is a student enrollment. So you're a student in here. And you can't create content, and you can't move things around. You can't change things. So they also give you a development shell, a practice shell, Canvas shell, in which you are enrolled as the instructor. And they ask you to go over to that shell and do something like load a syllabus,
Okay.
or create a quiz. And then you come back into the training course and you said, I did that. And you answer a couple of reflection questions. And then the grader goes over and looks in your practice shell and grades you and gives you a grade.
Oh.
And your grades appear in your grades tool. And you can see
Like you showed us today.
Pardon?
Like you showed us today.
Right, exactly. You can go
Okay.
in and see your grades and see your feedback.
Uh,
And if you need to do it again, in most cases, you can. You've got to
Okay.
get the trick here, the bar that you have to meet is that you have to get 90% of the points
mm-hmm.
possible in the course in order to be certified.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, the average grade in this course is like 96% or something like that. It's not hard to do.
Okay.
Grade inflation is rampant in this course, so it's not hard to get 90% or better. But sometimes you may have to try more than once, but that's fine.
Yeah, it will be. I'm starting at ground zero.
As long as you learn it,
Uh-huh.
that's all we care, not how many times it took you. And at the end, if you have the minimum number of points,
Mm-hmm.
you're certified. They send you an
Yay.
email. You have an email that you can print out and take to your dean, pound it, hang on their door or whatever, and say, assign me an online class. I'm ready to go. So,
Okay.
and we're here for, I'm going to be doing another one of those orientation and question and answer sessions on
Mhm.
Monday, 2 to 4.
Okay.
We
Okay.
just scheduled that today. So if you want to attend that, you're always welcome to, or you're always welcome to email me with questions too.
Okay.
So we'll be there to help you keep going. If you get hung up on something, you just can't get past a certain point, just email me and we'll help.
Okay. Thanks. I have one more question.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know Kathy's smiling. I like that. Okay. I know, gotta get them in while I can. The shell. Somewhere along the line, I read to be able to keep, if I'm developing in the shell for my class, I want to keep as much as possible, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And how will I be able to keep it?
Well, your shells will never go away.
Okay.
You'll have access to these shells indefinitely.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
what we do recommend,
Mhm.
not so much for this semester, but for next semester in the future,
Okay.
if you're
Mhm.
teaching online or using Canvas to enhance your face-to-face courses in the wonderful future when we can actually walk into a classroom with our students again, we recommend that you ask for what's called a development shell for each of the courses that you teach. like
Okay.
English 101, English 205, things like that.
Like we used to have to do in Blackboard
Yeah,
that I never finished. Okay.
we recommend you do that and
Okay.
develop your course, create your course in that development shell, which will never see students.
Okay.
So it won't have a chance to get messed up or anything like that. And also, it will never be touched by Peoplesoft, which can cause problems. So you have a shell that's safe, that has all your content in it, and then a week or so before the beginning of the term, you get your live shells that are going to be used for that semester with your
Okay.
students already in them. They don't have access yet, but they're enrolled. And you can then copy your content from your development shell into your live shell. The reason we ask you to do that, or recommend you do that, is that there are things that can happen to your live shells. Like at the last minute, they change a CRN.
Okay.
Or there's some other change of the title, something wrong in the title of the course or something. Any change that they make in Peoplesoft to that shell blows away the original copy of the shell and creates a new blank shell.
Kind of like what they did to me this semester. They offered me a class
no.
and then they took it away.
Oh boy, yeah.
That's
Well,
what you're saying, right?
We've had, well, it's something like that. We've had people develop their course in their live shell and have it all ready to go.
Yes, sir.
And then the CRN changes and boom, the shell's gone. It's blank.
All right.
We can get the content back, but it's a major hassle for everybody.
Oh,
so
well, okay.
It's a lot safer if you create your course in your development shell, get everything ready to go, and then about a day or two before the beginning of the term, when your students will gain access to the live shell, you copy the content. It takes like 3 minutes to copy the content from the development shell into the live shell, or multiple, if you have multiple sections of the course, into multiple live shells. And then you're ready to go. And there's very little chance of you losing that. Well, as long as you have the content in the development shell, nothing that happens in Peoplesoft can touch it. It's safe.
All right. Okay.
So we recommend that. And you can get a development shell just by calling the student or the faculty support line number in the help button on Canvas and say, I need a development shell for English 101.
Okay.
Well, here's my user ID. Can you make that for me? They'll say fine, and it'll appear on your dashboard within a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Dave, did I see something that said you can't export a quiz after X number of days?
No, you can't. You have to create the export file again. I think it's after 30 days, something like that. The export file is only stored on Canvas for 30 days. But you can always export the quiz again and make a new export file.
Yeah. If you have, I don't know how to ask this question. So you have courses of the same section. You have changed some things in one of the sections and you want the other one to have the same changes. Like the module in one isn't as complete as a module in the other, although all the homeworks have been, submitted and graded and everything. Can you take the module page, copy it, and paste it to the other course?
Well, it's not exactly a copy-paste, but you can copy modules from one course to another.
Even if there's already a module in the other?
Yeah. What you would do is you'd copy the new module in, and then you just delete the old out-of-date module from the target course.
Okay, and it's good.
Once you saw the copy had concluded successfully, then you could just wipe out the original version of that module and drag the new one up to wherever it should be, and you'd be ready to go.
Okay, But you said that's not a simple copy and paste the page that the modules
It's
are
not
on?
like Control C and Control V. No, you have to do a course copy with selected contents.
Okay, so I go to the course I want in, go to settings, go to import, go to, oh, but it won't let you select
Copy a
any.
Canvas course. I'm
Pardon?
sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
you're right. You were right.
So it can't, you either have to select the whole course or a test. Now, if you select the whole course because you want the
No,
modules.
it's not that complicated.
Okay.
Let's say I want. Oh, I don't want to mess with this course. So I would be terminated with extreme prejudice if I screwed up that course. Let me pick one of my playground courses here.
Yeah.
Let's say I wanted to copy a module from another course into this one.
All right.
I go to Settings,
Uh-huh.
just as you described, Import Course Content.
Import. Uh-huh.
And under the content type, I would select Copy a Canvas Course.
Okay.
Then I would select the course to
Okay.
copy.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the online faculty. Yeah, I can copy a module from the online faculty certification course.
All right.
I know that's not already in here, so I'll tell Canvas where the module is that I want to copy.
Okay.
The source course.
All right.
And instead of copying all content, I don't want that whole course dropped into here.
Right.
I just want selected specific
Oh,
content.
you have that selected part. Okay, great.
Select specific content.
Yeah.
Then click Import.
All right.
That starts a new job, a new import job.
Oh,
You have a button marked Select Content.
okay.
You click on that,
Uh-huh.
and you see a list of all the various different content items in that source course, the one you're going to copy from,
Right.
including a list of modules. You can
Okay,
expand that list.
Can you move that picture to my right?
That you could move it.
That's me. Okay. I just did it. Okay,
Very
so.
good. You can expand the list of modules, which there are 10, by clicking this little right arrow here, and that gives you a detailed list of all the modules in that course.
Yeah.
And there was one of those modules was called Canvas Tools. I'll just pick that one at random.
Yeah.
Select, but I could take more than one if I wanted to. Or I could take them all.
Yeah.
By clicking here. But let's say I just wanted that one.
Right.
I select the one I want. I could also take some assignments or some question banks or whatever as well.
Uh-huh.
I can take bits and pieces of anything I want here. Once I'm done selecting what I want, I just click the Select Content button.
Okay.
And the copy begins. It queues up. You don't have to sit here and watch this. You can just go on and do something else. But depending on how much you've asked to copy and how big both courses are, this can take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes to a few hours.
All right.
But if you come back later, it will be done, and your module that you're copying here will show up in your modules tool at the bottom of the list.
All right. All right. And then there might be some repeats. I get rid of the repeats.
Right.
Okay. But as long as they were both the same with points and all that sort of stuff, there shouldn't be an issue.
Well, yeah, remember the module, there it goes, it's running now. The module is just a set of links. It's not going to affect the assessments or the content pages or the files that you may have uploaded.
Right.
Now,
and when you copy
one thing to be concerned about, if you have let's say you have links to files in this module, if you haven't uploaded those files into the other section, the module won't be able to link to them. So you have to check for things like that. Check the new module when it comes in and make sure it's fully functional, and that but if everything else was already there, if the files were all there, the pages all there, the
Homeworks, everything.
homework assignments were already there, then the links should work fine.
Okay, now, one more question. If you copy an entire course to another course, you import it to another course.
Right.
Grades don't come over there.
No.
Okay.
Neither student enrollments nor grades come
Okay,
forward.
so all that individualistic stuff stays and doesn't come over.
Right. The student submissions, grades, and enrollments do not copy, just the content and assessments and modules and so on.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
My pleasure.
It's so wonderful just to have you there to answer these questions. I appreciate it so much.
That's what they want me to do. And I'm really happy to do it.
Thank you.
You
All right. I'm leaving then.
Well, y'all have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. And I'll see you again soon, I hope.
All right.
Take care.